Do you see the main? Do you see the screen? The.
Yep, I do.
Perfect. So we're gonna switch, and I'm gonna go to the other computer. So you good?
Okay.
No, here, just stay. So just click. Here, I'll go reload here, or I'll come back.
Okay. I'm gonna go on mute.
Sorry, everyone, my computer just will not get back on the internet, which is odd. Okay. Welcome, everybody. I am happy to be here with you all. I hope you had a great weekend. We also had a good long weekend here. It was a vacation weekend. So now it's time to get back into work, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so my presentation is on learning how to learn entrepreneurship. And it's kind of an odd title, but there are foundational things to understanding how people learn entrepreneurship that kind of get lost in the pedagogy along the way. So I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey today about learning entrepreneurship. Okay, so just as a little introduction, I'm going to give you a personal story. We're going to watch a video, and Husna's going to be my executive producer with the video. She's going to help me out a lot. And we then are going to talk about where and how adults learn, the relationship of adult learning to entrepreneurship, adult learning theories, student entrepreneurs, role of the instructor, learning with Dime, and recap some information. So there's a lot to do today. And I'll give breaks in between, but please use the chat, and Maine can help keep me posted on questions that need to be clarified as we go through the presentation. Okay, so my own personal story, I went back to school. My original degree is in nursing, so I worked as a nurse for a number of years. And then I went into business with Mr. John for over 25 years. And we developed a company and sold it after a while. And through that, I began to work with other entrepreneurs. Because we were successful, people would come to us in this community and across nationally. We would meet people across the country who our story was being told across the country in various magazines and sites. And so people would ask us, you know, how we did it or want us to coach them. And so that developed into another side business. And I ended up working a lot with women entrepreneurs and with young entrepreneurs. And so in 2014, I decided, I felt that what I was doing was almost superficial, that the coaching, I have a coaching certificate in performance management and helping people and do better performances at work. And I knew a lot about entrepreneurship, but I felt what I was doing was with the people was more reaction and not proactive. And so I decided I would go back to school, and I knew about this program in adult education. It's kind of world renowned here. It's right in my back door at St. Francis Xavier University. And its adult education department is world renowned. And the people there do a lot of research on how adults learn, and in every quadrant, in every sector. And so I took the opportunity, I applied, I was accepted. It was a big deal because we also had 5 children, so it was a busy time. And John was starting his academic career. And so I jumped in, but I really did not know what I was jumping into. It was a lot of work. And so a little story here, when I first, you start the program and you meet and you're with people for 3 months, and then you're kind of on your own in a self-directed way to study. And the first meeting I had with my advisor, and she knew I was studying how entrepreneurs learn. And luckily for me, she's one of the most world-renowned writers here. Her name is Leona English, and she works for the United Nations as well. She takes time off and goes there and works with them for a year at a time and comes back. But she was putting me to the test. So I went with her the first time in her office, and she said, "Oh, great, Lisa. Finally, I get to see you. Sit down one-on-one. Let's talk." I told her what I wanted to study. I wanted to look at different entrepreneurial women from different countries and do some epistemological work with them and do some research and get some answers. And I was really looking for comparing, because I noticed when I traveled around the world and heard stories from different women that we had a lot in common. And that was very eye-opening to me. Even though we were from different cultures, the way we were learning entrepreneurship, there was a lot of commonality. And so I started on this journey. So she sat me down, she said, "Oh, good, Lisa." She said, "Tell me how you learned to be an entrepreneur." And I said, "Well, I started with something like, I'm a good listener, and I know that's really helpful when you're dealing with other people and wanting to learn." And she goes, "Oh, that's really great. But how did you become a good listener? How did you learn this skill?" And I was like, blah, 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 blah. I didn't really have a good answer. And then she said, "Okay, well, tell me something else that made you a good entrepreneur." And I said, "Well, I'm also very creative." And she said, "Oh, wonderful. Why? What makes you creative? How did you learn to be so creative?" And I was like, well, I just am creative. And then this went on for a while. She said, "Tell me something else then. Tell me about another skill that you have and how you got to have that skill." And I said, "Well, I'm adaptable. I can change on a dime. I can do this project and I can switch and do this project and still get results in the other project." And she goes, "That's great. How did you learn that? And where did you learn to do that?" And I was like, I could not answer these questions. And again, I was like, I'm intuitive. And she said, "Lisa, those are all great. But," she said, "what I'd like you to do is go back to the books, go back to the literature, look at how adults learn, dive deep into the entrepreneurial literature, and then come back and see me in a month." And so I was really deflated. And I thought, oh my goodness, do not know what I'm doing here. I think it's time to quit. But I did. I dove into the research, and I got completely involved into the research. And of course, John was teaching entrepreneurship at that time. And so I was able to talk to him, and we were able to talk a lot. And he had other people that he was working with in entrepreneurship. And so I had other people that I knew in entrepreneurship. So things were evolving, and I was learning a lot. So what I'd like to do now is Husna has a link for a video she's going to send out to everybody. Google Meet won't allow YouTube for me to show this to you via YouTube, via the Google Meets right in what we're doing. So I would like you all to either watch it on your phone or go away from my PowerPoint and watch it on your own computer. Okay, so you can mute it. I've seen it a number of times doing this presentation and with students. So if you could watch that now, what I'd like you to do is take down some notes on how these entrepreneurs are describing how they learned. And everyone's going to participate. Every single person here in our attached to my PowerPoint today, I'm going to have Husna call on you, each person, and I want you to bring something you heard from this video to the table. Okay, so we're going to have a discussion about what's happening with these entrepreneurs. So it's an interview, it's from South Korea. So please jot something down. You're all going to tell me something. and we'll have a discussion. So I'll see you. It's a very short video, 4 minutes, and I'll see you in 5 minutes. Okay?
So I have sent the link via our via email and also WhatsApp, so you guys can watch it. I have sent the link. I can also send the link here.
And I put it in the chat too, if anybody needs it.
So any questions on the assignment? You see the word you?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Okay, I just finished mine.
Yeah, me too. What about others? Cik Muhammad, have you done?
Yes.
Yes, me too. Finish.
Okay.
Okay, done.
So where's Prof Lisa and also Prof Dobson?
Looks like everybody's back. Did we lose the Professor Dobsons?
Yeah.
I think we may have. Nope, he's here. All right. So I think we got everybody, Professor Dobson. It looks like a lot of people have got bad connection problems. I understand. If you guys need to turn off your video, if you're having a bad connection, it might make it easier so you can listen. John, I see you're there, or Professor Dobson, I see you're there, but I don't see your screen. All right, they're going to try to join back in. I was on a call earlier this week, and there were hurricanes and power outages, and people were sitting in the dark in front of their computers. So, oh, if something can go wrong, it will, right? Weather around the world has not been cooperating.
Yeah.
So we lost Prof. Dobson?
We did, but they will join in just 1 second. I
Yeah.
think they're having some internet issues, I think. So did everyone have a chance to watch the video?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Nice.
Okay. Who would like to kick off some of the things that, remember you were asked to write down at least one thing from the video, right? Who would like to kick off a conversation while we wait for both professors to join? Oh, this is Professor Dobson. 1 second. Hi there. Okay, well, we're talking about the video, okay? I'll let him know you're jumping back in. That was Professor Dobson.
What's wrong?
He's rebooting his computer. So his computer went down. So
I see.
it happens. It happens. I know somebody else was having problems too. So it happens. But while we wait, I told him we were discussing the video. So
I like the terms when one of the entrepreneurs says that if he wants to do business, it has to be first hand. So that means you have to know from the beginning of what business you are doing. So the words being first hand is actually things that we have to learn if we want to do business. Don't just leave it to others to run your business. So you have to do it yourself and be in the
are you
know
talking
on
about the young
everything.
guy?
Yeah.
The young guy that said that I had to learn everything myself. Nobody
Yeah.
helped me. I went on to all the warehouses and did all my interviews and said, teach me, and no one wanted to teach me. Yeah, you're right. Excellent.
Yeah.
Learn it yourself. Who else? Another comment? What'd you learn?
Yeah, I learned that as an entrepreneur, you have to know about your product. Yeah, you have to understand your something like a product knowledge. So you have to understand your product very well, so it can match the customer. needs and also the product that provided by the entrepreneur.
Absolutely, absolutely. Remember when the person with it was the two girls and the seatbelt design? Talk about know your product.
Yeah.
It was the one. What did they say they needed to do? They said they, here they've got them all done, but what did they need to do?
They have to match it with the customer's need.
Right. Testing with the customer. Excellent. Excellent. You guys are really listening to this. Uh-huh. Who else? What was something that you learned?
Can I chip in?
Yes, please.
I think the similarity between all those three entrepreneurs, they were talking about challenges.
Challenges, absolutely.
Yeah. For example, the first one was talking about when they have the plush toy for the seat belt, but even though they have a good product, but it does not necessarily translate into sales.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they have to keep on testing. And then the second one, we're talking about agility, where your product must be unique if you would like to, have advantage in the business.
You got
And
it.
then,
I got that one too.
Yeah, and then the last one would be the same like Prof. Nick Mahiran was talking about, where you have to experience everything. So, for example, as being a CEO, you have to know everything in the business, like in the back of your hand.
Yes.
Yeah,
or want to know, right? Or be in the process of learning and that
exactly.
mindset that you never stop learning, right?
Yes.
I think that's so important. Well done. Yeah. Learning. Who else? What else did we learn? Remember, everybody was coming up with one thing.
Dr. Rai.
Who's next? Dr. Rai?
Dr. Samsuriana. I think she's
Okay.
ready. Okay, Dr. Rai.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we should believe, they should believe to their products, and also their ability, which means they should have a high levels of confidence levels, and then they should try something and don't be too naive, which means that they are very important between they and their knowledge about their product and also how they want to develop their products.
Well done. Absolutely. Professor Dobson, we're just going through some of the comments that they saw from the video. Who else saw something? What did you hear? What did you learn? Is it Siam Surana? Siam Surana?
Shamsuriana. Okay, so it's okay. You can just call me Sam.
Okay,
Sam. It's yes, more easier for you, right? Okay, so actually, the most thing that I found in this 4 minutes video is one of the entrepreneurs say that it should be the unique one. That's the key to sustain your business. And then what the S is just seems to like others, such as it's about that entrepreneur are visiting the factory at the first, and then they have to willing to learn, and then what more? Then I think the rest is quite similar with other friends.
No, wonderful. That was great. Unique, willing to learn some of the things we touched on.
Yes,
absolutely.
You have to learn. You have to learn. Learning by experience.
By experience, oh, absolutely. As an entrepreneur, definitely.
Yes.
Anyone else? Who else we've got?
Shewan. Oh. Hi,
How about
Shewan.
Noor?
Blackout ke?
At my time, at my place, it's already breakout.
Oh.
Because very bad weather.
Oh, we're good. Okay, I couldn't hear it.
Run out of battery. So, so everyone can see me.
Yeah, yeah, we can see you.
It's a little dark, but we could.
The motivation to learn is there, so no worries, even though you are in the dark.
Yes.
You will get the highest mark today.
Elise, what did you learn though?
Hi, Cik Mat. Cik Wan.
Hi. Yes, yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
What did you learn?
From my point of view about that video is they have to know the product actually, and then they have to already understand what the market needs, because the market needs is very it's very close to the product what we want to create or service that we want to offer to the market.
Absolutely. Know the market. Good answer. Who else? Professor Lisa, whenever you'd like to take back over. This is
already run out. Okay.
Hi, Husna and May, did everybody speak?
not everybody, but
I
I wanted
really
to.
apologize for the interruption with the internet.
Yeah.
I can keep going. I just wanted to make
So
sure.
yeah, I'd like to, Husna, do you have a good list?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Yeah, I have the list.
Okay.
Azwa hasn't shared her thought.
Yeah,
And
great.
then,
I'm going to have Husna call on more people because she knows the names better than we do.
Yeah.
And then we'll help keep the lists going.
Okay. So what about Azwa? Miss Azwa?
Yeah. Sorry. Hi.
Hi.
Yes, I'm here. So hi. So
Can we see your
hi.
face?
Can you see me?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Perfect.
This is our third class. So this is my first time switch on the camera. So hi, it's me.
Hi.
I'm Azwa. So one of the things that I've gone through this video. So one of the most important things is in terms of how you deliver your product. It is not the importance about you to understand the trending of the product. The most trending product is not important, but the most important things is either your product is unique, and also in terms of your knowledge, in terms of your own product. And then another thing that you must know is the marketing part is very important in order to deliver your product towards your customer.
What was the last thing you said? Sorry, the very last thing you said?
Okay. The last thing is about in terms of understanding you punya main customers, so that you can understand your customers. So what is your needs in terms of the product? So this is one of the good things in terms of delivering your product towards your customers.
Absolutely. Who else we got?
Who's next? Yeah, who would like to talk next? Who's not?
Dr. Ikhwan?
All right. Okay. Hi everyone. So, okay, I try my best to explain about the video. All right. So basically, this video explain about how we should organize our business in terms of several point of view. Part of it is about the demand and supply. We have to understand about demand and supply, and then second part we have to understand the trend of the business. And then the other part is we have to know the customer, what the customer wants. And then finally, we have to innovate, because from the innovation, we have to know how to reduce the cost, how to make a profit. Because in order to make a business, we have to know how to make a profit. Otherwise, we cannot sustain our businesses. So that's why from the video I see that how they are starting from the idea, because they foresee several of ideas from the flip flop, from the bracelets, and then they're testing with the cut fruit, and then finally they are come up with the brownies that have exactly what the customer wants, and then also they have exactly the profit, the cost that able for them to make profit from that. So I believe that this flow have caused the process on how to create a business that a profitable business. It's not about the product itself, but it also can be implemented to any kind of product that able to make a business and profit. That's what
Okay.
I.
Okay. Thank you. You said that there's a lot in there. How were they getting their customers to understand what their customers want?
They are doing some part because of what I understand. They are doing some part, and then certain part they are doing the try and error, such as they are doing the market survey. They have asked the customer feedback, and then they also take a look on the cost of the product.
Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure Husna's got that. So trial and error.
Innovation.
And customer feedback.
Yes, and innovation.
Okay.
Sorry, can I interrupt? Are you referring to the latest video or the video that I shared before? Because I think you're saying about the brownies and fruit scoop, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Wrong video.
Maybe I think you yeah.
Oh, so did they watch? Okay, go ahead. Husna, go ahead.
I think maybe Dr. Ikhwan, he came in quite late today, so he didn't watch probably he didn't watch the latest one, but I get the point.
His points are very valid.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So trial and error and customer feedback.
Yeah.
And innovation of the product. Okay. Okay. Who else, Husna? Who did we not hear from yet? We'd like to hear from everybody.
Yeah, exactly. I would suggest for Dr. Rahani.
Dr. Raihan has done. Yeah, Dr. Yusri Nadini. Hi, Dr. Yusri Nadini.
Hello.
Hello. Maybe we can
chat. I can send him a chat.
Yeah.
Or we can start with Hanim.
Okay. Are there any comments in the chat that anybody made in relation to what they heard that in the interview that anybody was describing? Is there other things in the chat?
Oh yeah, we were, when you guys were offline, we got a bunch of comments. So know your product.
Okay, Husna,
sorry, go ahead.
Husna, can you just go through that as you hear the list? Maybe write down on the. She has a paper. She's writing down for me. Go ahead, May. Go ahead.
So we said know your product. Someone said testing with the customer is very important. Challenges through sales, to address challenges through sales through testing. Be unique. And be open to learning.
Korea has been active in stepping up efforts to become an innovative and entrepreneurial economy driven
Someone's watching it. Okay. Believe in your product, right? Someone said believe in your product. Be unique, be willing to learn, know the product market needs, how to deliver unique, understand the customer. Supply and demand, trending, which I think what they actually said in the actual video today was don't go with trends, but rather facts, like interview your customer, find out what they want, right? And then innovate.
Okay, great. Okay, now I want to take it one step further, and I want to ask you to think about the video. And did you hear the students and the young entrepreneurs state any feelings, how they felt about their work? Okay, I'm going to ask for Husna, if you could please draw in some people again. So what kind of feelings were they attributing to the type of work that they were having to go through to learn about their business? Or what was inferred? Sometimes, do you understand the word inferred? Through the video, you can sometimes get an inference of how they were feeling, but in the video, a number of them did use feelings.
Maybe Dr. Anis, you want to start with what?
I can see that from the first entrepreneur, I think so, the one who used the car seat. She says that she's mentions about the word confidence. Yeah. So she says that she will feeling confidence when you continue to test your product. Yes, they mentioned about it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to add some more inferences or words that they heard related to feelings?
Dr. Yusrinadini.
I'm not sure they heard you. Can you say that again?
Maybe can Dr. Samsuriana, can you share what did you learn?
About the feeling.
Yeah, about the feelings.
What emotions that these entrepreneurs were having?
Maybe at the first startup of the business, they feel there are a lot of challenges, but after they did it, and then they hit the target sale, so they feel very happy.
Happy, great.
Yeah.
Challenges, happy.
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Did anybody else write anything down about emotions or feelings of what was happening with the entrepreneurs? What was the context that they were going through? Each one of them mentioned very, very specific emotions and feelings about doing their business.
I heard the word naive.
Naive.
Yeah.
The word naive.
Yeah.
Who said that?
The couple who were working on that seatbelt plush toys. Yes. So
Yes.
because they think that they have a good product, but it was not really translated into sales. So at first they thought like, oh, I have a good product, so everybody will want to buy it. But that didn't happen, you know. So that's why they said it's naive.
Can you help me? I gotta see what your name is.
Muhammad.
Muhammad.
Yes.
Okay, Muhammad. What else was happening in that specific interview? What happened there? Why the word naive goes with what? They won something, didn't they?
They what?
Did they win something? Those girls.
Yeah, they won the award.
Yeah.
Right, for the best design or something.
Yeah, the best design in the whole school for the whole year. Yeah.
Yes.
But yet they were naive, even though they won the award. What happened?
Those customers doesn't really share the sentiments. I mean, like, you still need to work extra to convince the customer that they need the product, even though you have won something.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Okay. Who else can add to the emotions and feelings that were happening with maybe the other set of the other two interviews? Thank you for everybody so far. Who else could add some emotion?
Can I add something?
Yes.
All right. So from the video that I have watched from that one, I understand what I understand that the entrepreneur. Okay, there are a bit mix of feelings. The first one, you have to be unique on your product, and then the second one, you have to go through from the top store to the bottom in order to understand the flow of the business, so that you're able to foresee what kind of the circumstances and then also the challenges that might come up on how you're going to reflect on the trend, business, and so on. So that's part of that one.
Okay, is it mode?
Ikhwan.
Dr. Aziz?
One, yes.
One. Yes. Okay, so you mentioned that they went from the top to the bottom and went through everything and they had many mixed feelings.
Yes.
So did they actually go from the top to the bottom, or are they starting at the bottom and going up?
Actually, from what I understand, they're starting from, because in order, like the successful one, they watch the startup, they watch all the startup, and then they understand what the cost of startup to be success or not success, and then they start from the below. They start from the below, from the bottom, and then they're going up. Even though there are some certain of the challenges that they're going through, by make unique of product.
And can you put an inference to an emotion? What goes with a challenge? What kind of emotion comes with challenge?
The emotion of the challenge is about the the emotion is something like what I need to say is a mixed feeling on you have to take a risk because you do not. It's about a fear, okay, emotion of fear.
Yes, fear.
Because when you want to go through of the business, you do not know to what extent your product going to be accepted by the customer or the market.
Right. So fear of the unknown.
Yeah. Fear
okay.
of the unknown.
Thank you. Okay. So maybe the last group, the individual, the guy with the packaging. Let's try to grab an emotion and a feeling from him, and then we're going to move on. Who would like to? Husna, do you have a volunteer that might?
One Hazrina, we haven't heard from you.
Good.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello, Hazrina. Yeah. We can't hear you. We can see you, but we can't.
Yeah, I already unmute my microphone. Sorry. From the success story that have been shared just, from the video just now, what I can say is that the word is enthusiastic, right? Because of all those three entrepreneurs, when they talk about their business, they are quite enthusiastic. They have they're full of enjoyment when they share about their business, right? For example, like Kim Seng Young. Sorry if I'm correct me if I'm wrong. Which is the printing company business, right? When he shared the business that he said that first thing first. What do you if you want to do the business? The first thing is he experienced is first-hand experience. Like he said that anybody doesn't want to share anything about regarding the printing, so he has to find it himself to learn about some sort of printing regarding the business, his business actually. So that's that.
I'm going to interrupt you there and ask you. So
yeah.
While he was going and nobody wanted to help him. What feeling goes with that?
What I can say is that it is part of our challenges that the entrepreneur had to face. So the feeling is quite what I can say unhappy or quiet unhappy.
Unhappy. Another adjective to describe that would be frustrated.
Yeah, frustrated. Okay.
Frustrated. Okay.
Taken aback and so on.
Everything you said is fine. Okay, I think we'll move on. Thank you everyone for participating. It makes the discussion much richer, and everything we have to further talk about will be much richer. Thank you. Husna,
Yeah.
are you able to share your screen?
Let me check.
So I had asked Husna before we started today if she would keep track of what people spoke about and how you all described what was happening in the interview. This interview gives very rich detail to what's happening to young entrepreneurs and startup entrepreneurs. Okay, go ahead, Husna.
But I didn't not jot down the feelings about the feelings. I just jot down.
That's okay. That's okay. Okay, so what I want to reveal to all of you today are these comments. As you can see, I had ahead of time. Oh,
sorry.
That's okay. Perfect. Okay. Ahead of time, I had asked Husna to place various aspects of what you were describing into 3 different columns. All right. All right. So they were invisible to you, but what I want to relate to you now is that the 3 columns, the first one is formal learning. The second one is non-formal learning. And the third one is informal. So we see under formal learning, so we have she wrote down innovation, how to reduce the cost and how to make profit to sustain a business. So this is something that was learned in a school. This probably came, I'm sorry I missed the very first part, but thank you so much, Husna, for doing all this. But this would have come from formal learning, which happens in a school. Okay, so probably came from the first girls in the first interview. The second one, non-formal, willing to learn by visiting factories. Okay, so this is kind of in between. It could actually go into informal, and I'll explain a little bit more in a moment. So let's look under informal, where we see the vast amount of your descriptions fit into informal learning. Okay. So firsthand experience, you have to do it yourself. Very good point. Know customer needs and have the product knowledge. Very good point. Again, those come from experiences and trial and error. Keep on testing. The product must be unique and be agile as you must be agile as an entrepreneur. So we're talking about skills that are built outside of school or could be built in school as well. And so keep on testing is another, dealing with your customer, listening to your customer, and being another trial and error component, right? It fails, start again, learn something, put it in there and restart. All right, then we have experience everything. Things should be at the back of your hand. So that tells me that you're learning something, you've got it at the back of your hand, and you learned something else, you've added to it, and then you're making things better. Okay? So believe in your product, be confident with yourself, try and don't be too naive. Okay, so there's the word naive again, and there's the word believe in yourself. These things are related to becoming self-confident, and these things happen over time. Okay? Product must be unique to sustain in business. So this is something that the entrepreneur talked about, especially the 2, I think they all actually pointed a little bit on this. It has to be unique and sustain. And this again comes from trial and error and talking to your customers, knowing what your customer wants so that it is unique enough that the customer is going to use it. Understanding product and market need. Again, that comes from getting out there and talking with your customers and getting feedback. Knowledge on product. Again, the word unique. Knowledge on product. So knowledge on product means that you've learned something, right? Knowledge. I've seen this word, a few of you mentioned knowing, knowledge, learning. These are all components that we take for granted that our students are getting. But this knowledge component has to come from somewhere. Ask customer feedback. Again, very important to get the feedback so you can do it again, be better. Trial and error, understanding demand and supply, trends of the business. So trends of the business, we talked a little bit about that when it was brought up earlier. So trends, the point was that don't be in a trend if you want your business to survive long term. What a customer wants, and firsthand experience. Again, there's the experience and knowledge. Okay, and he had to go out and learn about the printing himself. So the point here is that if we look at the list, we see it's all on.
Just ask her to go to the slides to explain the three dimensions. Who's the switch slides?
Sorry?
Switch slides. Go to the next slide.
Going to move to the next slide. Thank you, everyone, for all the input. Okay, so now I'm going to take you through a little bit of a learning journey about being sure that you understand the differences and where students are coming from and entrepreneurs are coming from in their learning. So formal learning is the organized systematic plan learning that you have. So it's like your school, your university, Harvard, Clark University, Worcester Polytechnic, where I am. Okay. Oh, she has it?
Yes.
Husta, can you switch it to the next slide? Can I take it back? Okay, so the next component is the non-formal or specialized training, okay? So there really, nobody in the videos mentioned that they had taken any specialized training, although they may have. And when he went to the factory, he may have gotten very good experience and maybe was able to apprentice under someone, but he didn't actually get a certificate for that. But he took it upon himself to go do that. That's informal. Now, non-formal is they're developing a specific skill. It comes in short courses, and you can take things, for instance, I put up here like the Red Crescent. If it's similar to us in Canada, the US, you can, if you want to be a lifeguard, you have to take a Red Crescent course, and you have to be certified for CPR to do pulmonary resuscitation. So that's a course somebody needs in order to have a specific job. Same with Microsoft. There's companies who need a Microsoft certificate so that you can be part of that workforce. Next slide, please, Husna. Okay, so here we are at informal learning, where most of our components came from these entrepreneurs. So informal learning is the intentional or unintentional, and also incidental learning. It happens every day, all around you, and it happens and gives you new meaning because you're constantly building upon it, your experiences. And another very important part about this is that it's individual. So each individual's learning experience from informal opportunities is something they bring to the table only. They bring to the classroom only and add richness, okay?
Ask her to unshare your screen.
Can you unshare the screen, Husna, and I will.
Okay. So.
Okay, I'll stop sharing.
Okay.
Okay, and so the idea in what we're developing is we've seen from the examples and from your own experiences. Can you see the screen now or no?
Yeah, we can see the
Perfect. The PowerPoint.
Presentation.
Okay. Yeah. And so what we're this one's not populated, but we see that most of the ways entrepreneurs learn is through informal learning. And so what we're not saying that the only way entrepreneurs can learn is outside the classroom, and therefore we shouldn't have entrepreneurship courses in the classroom. What we're saying is kind of the opposite. What we need to do is we need to structure these informal learning opportunities within our academic curriculum. And so, because what we know is that most of what we observe in entrepreneurial learning is these incidental, unexpected learning opportunities. And there's ways, and the purpose of this faculty development is to sort of construct ways to apply it into a formal academic setting. Those are the same thing. And so that's the research.
Okay, so the research, there's lots of research on informal learning and about there's lots of research as well about bringing informal learning into workplaces and making it work, such as, I missed a screen. So at the end of here, you can see like lunch and learn, like many companies and many businesses will bring in lunch and learn. I'm not sure, has anybody ever done lunch and learn? It's very popular in workplaces and at universities as well. They'll have a professor come and speak at lunchtime. That is informal learning. What you're trying to do there is add to people's knowledge. So when we get to the facts, it's the evidence tells us that informal learning is 75% of our learning, okay? Non-formal is 15% and formal is 10%. Now, around the globe, there's some place where informal learning is 100%. In emerging markets, there's in India and Africa and probably in places where you are as well, informal learning is 100% of people's learning, and they might come across a mentor to help them. But the fact is, around the globe, informal learning is 75% of your learning. So we're interested in how we can, what John was saying, how can we bolster our formal learning with what we know about how entrepreneurs learn informally, okay? So what does adult learning have to do with entrepreneurship? Well, we know that 75% of what they're learning is outside of our classrooms. So I had to, this was what was thrusted upon me by my academic advisor, and I had to go deep into the literature to figure this out. Now, other people have studied this as well. So I had to look for quite a while to find out about learning, how entrepreneurs were learning, because a lot of what I saw in the literature and doing reviews of various components of entrepreneurial literature was the fact that the mistake I made, I was characterizing what entrepreneurs, who an entrepreneur was. I was looking at best practices as opposed to looking at how entrepreneurs were actually learning. Because if we can grasp how entrepreneurs are actually learning on their own, we can find ways to bolster that into the classroom. And that's what we really need to do. So one of the first pieces of evidence I found in the literature, and I noticed this was in other people's literature who were trying to figure out entrepreneurship education at the scholarly level. This particular quote has been used over and over. So it goes like this. It's from Smiler in 1997. And I don't want people worried about writing these things down. I'm very happy to pass on this PowerPoint through Husna if people are interested in having more of the information for themselves. So Smiler's comment goes like this: entrepreneurs are exceptional learners. Entrepreneurs learn from customers, suppliers, competitors. Entrepreneurs learn from their employees and their associates. They learn from other entrepreneurs. They learn from experience by doing. They learn from what works. And more importantly, they learn from what doesn't work. So this piece of literature really spoke to me because because I related to it as an entrepreneur. I read this and I said, this is what I do. This is what I do every day, every week, all the time. This is how I work. And so I'm going to now take you to a few facts about, sorry, that word should be entrepreneurship, fix that, entrepreneurship today. So we know today from the literature, there's there's a lot of literature now in the last 10 years and being written about what is happening in the realm of academic education and entrepreneurship and innovation studios, what's happening right now around the globe. So entrepreneurship activities, we look at this first fact, across countries has fallen by 50% since 1978. So we work with other people in other countries, and this is a problem. Even though we might have some startups, and even though if you think back to the video, those first young girls, young ladies, they're not girls, young ladies, they're young adults learning about entrepreneurship, they won this great award. And they had this naive idea that because they created something, it was a business. However, the entrepreneurial process was missing. There was a lot missing there. And so you get a lot of these startups, but they don't produce long-term work for entrepreneurial work. Okay, another factor that this is one from the US, business dynamism in the US has been declining since the early 2000s. And many people are, of course, concerned about this. And so with the current state, currently more academics argue approaches to pedagogy and entrepreneurship education should be reevaluated to produce these economic benefits that the countries and universities are wishing to realize. So, you know, people are looking at how can we do this better and how can we make entrepreneurs and lasting entrepreneurs. It goes back to what John presented in the last two earlier workshops about the intentions of the entrepreneurs. We need to make sure that the entrepreneurial intention is realized and that we get entrepreneurs after our classes. So entrepreneurs today, so 62% of the incoming freshmen, they want to be entrepreneurs. They think that that's where they're at and that they come in and they have this idea that about entrepreneurship. But in the end, only 2% actually do. So the top three reasons that they give for not completing their idea in entrepreneurship and creating their idea is I have no money, no knowledge, and no time. So much is wrapped up about winning the award and getting the money that many other components, especially the learning components to be an entrepreneur, the success and failure, the trial and error, the reaching the customers, those things get lost because many people are so focused on the money. So if you really understand, if you spend the time building your knowledge, the money will come, okay? So it's all about spending time. We have this backwards. We in the classroom in universities and in innovation centers, it's backwards. So the money is last. Spend the time, get your knowledge, build on your knowledge, build on your skills, and the money will come. Okay, so how can you leverage informal learning and entrepreneurship education? What I'm going to do now is take you through some adult learning theory, just to give you a foundational basis for where in the literature it's kind of like hidden. But when you read an article, you realize, oh yeah, that is there. But they really don't say that in the article. Okay, so I'm going to go through some things that are will enrich your reading of articles and how entrepreneurs learn, and when you're looking at other theories of entrepreneurship. So what is happening between the entrepreneur's idea and a successful outcome? I want to look at what's happening here. Many people we have an idea and they think there's going to be automatic success. And with success is this idea of money. However, there's all of this component in the middle that is missing many times for the young entrepreneur. And they get deflated, but because they missed an opportunity and didn't get the money at the pitch competition. But that's not what entrepreneurship is all about. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper into some of this. So what is learning? Learning is putting elements together that produce a change in individuals' thinking and behavior. As we do this, I want you to think about where you are in your classrooms and where you are, whatever your component is that you do with students. I want you to think about, am I doing this? As Lisa goes through this, am I providing an opportunity for change for these individuals? And is it an organized way that students will do it? That's what education is. It's an organized way of providing for the possibility of learning. And adult education is simply activities intentionally designed for the purpose of bringing about learning among those whose social roles or self-perception define them as adults. And it's interesting, depending on where you are around the world and what your context is, this can be as young as 12 years old, that they can grasp these concepts that we're going to be going through. Some very important elements of adult education. And again, I want you to think about your students and what you're doing with your students. So the education that you're providing should be challenging assumptions that your students have. You should be working on capturing and growing their intellect. A big component is the self-actualization of the person, okay? Whether it's a classroom group or an individual, what are the talents? What are the potentials of those groups? What are the talents of each individual? What do they bring to the table? How can they help each other? How can they best leverage those talents to produce something unique? So personal self-efficacy becomes very important, because if they don't grow this self-efficacy, they're not going to have social improvement. And this, again, think about what is happening with your individuals in your classroom. So in the end, sometimes you get this social transformation. This can be incremental, where you see them grow like an entrepreneurship, or it can be a radical change where a group has decided to do something and change their whole area. They might have got together and decided we're going to pick up, clean all the trash at the beach, and our beach will be clean and clear of trash. And all of a sudden you go and one day you look and everybody has worked and there's no garbage anywhere. So that's a radical change. Okay. And that becomes a social transformation for not only people individually, but for a community. Okay. So it can be individual or community. Okay. How adults learn and the theory. How adults learn. So the theory of andragogy, Knowles is kind of the father of how adults learn. And he is basically talking, he studied how adults learn as opposed to how children learn. So we look and we see there's 5 components that you need to think about when you're getting your classroom together and how you want your students to learn. So there's the self-directed component. They have a desire to identify their own individual learning needs and problem interests. And that's something that's very important to us at DIME, and that really works. Instead of everybody working on one project, people can figure out what their own needs are. Concrete experiences, the second concept. So you're learning from, you already have experiences that form the basis of your experiences, and you use those basis of experiences to create or to help you learn through new experiences. Orientation to learn. So this is where people are orientated to learn, and they can tap into their capacities. They're already there. They want to learn, And so they have these capabilities and potentials and talents, and we need to help them tap into those. And they have a desire to learn. They have a desire to decide what to learn. When you think about the average everyday entrepreneur, like in the video, who may not have had any schooling or formal schooling or non-formal course, they still have a readiness to learn and a desire to decide how they're going to become who they are as an entrepreneur. And finally, the motivation to learn. So this is an intrinsic motivation that gets developed. And this has very specific meaning and purpose to that person. Okay, so experiential learning theory. This is another theory that's embedded into the entrepreneurship literature. So experiential learning theory is a process whereby knowledge is created through a learning cycle. And this elaborates on the complex and dynamic nature of individual learning of experiences. So Kolb is known to be the godfather of experiential learning. And before him, there was Dewey and Lewin and people who studied experiences, but he really took it to the level of adults and what exactly is happening. And so you see here we have the experience, you're doing an action, you have an experience. You review what's happening in the experience, you reflect on it. You're thinking about that reflection and what if, or how could I do it better? And then you come to a new form of something new is developing in your mind. So there's this abstract computation that's happening, conceptualization, and you're learning from that experience. You already have a basis of experience, you have the new experience on top of it, and you're learning through all this, and then you're developing new assumptions. Okay? And we have this study of self-directed learning theory. So this is a process in which individuals take the initiative with or without the help of others in diagnosing their learning needs, formulating goals, identifying human and material resources for learning, choosing and implementing appropriate learning strategies, and evaluating their learning outcomes. This is from Knowles. And what's happening here, out of this, we get motivation. And they're now moving into a self-regulated process. They're seeing that, oh, I can do this. I see something I want. I'm going to start the process where I might need help from somebody, or I can do this myself. And they're becoming self-directed. This is an area, this is where we find a lot of the students will move into. This intrinsic motivation is very important. So the idea is in reaching, they start with instructor-led, they go into getting their own motivation, and then they become more autonomous and enabled by the instructor. Okay, so here's some of you may have seen this before, but if you take the time to go through this self-directed learning theory, you understand that it's integrated, and you see that we can start at, if you start at the beginning with self-motivation, you choose the learning tasks, take responsibility, plan your own learning, outcomes and activities. It's becoming very self-regulated, okay? Then you move over to self-management. You choose to control your behaviors, your actions, and your resources. You become more independently a problem solver, creatively making decisions on your own, okay? Down here, you move to self-monitoring. Choose to monitor your own thinking and actions with self-reflection and self-awareness. So as you're going through these experiences, you are learning to be more self-directed, just like the theory says. Changing in your behaviors and your actions start to happen. you're being more self-monitoring, and you're getting this feedback from others that enables you to make these changes. So back to informal learning. So the informal learning theory really brings you to the problem solving and adding value. So we know informal learning takes place everywhere. Informal learning is done at home, in offices, in kitchens, in the context where knowledge is deployed to solve problems and add value to people's lives. So if you take the time and you stop to think about after this session is over, you might start to think, yes, that's happening at work, that's happening at home with my family, that's happening with my group that I work with down the street to volunteer. So what comes out of this is there's a junction here in this informal learning where an opportunity lies. And people see the opportunity, but some people want to capture the opportunity and learn with it and develop it. And that's where the entrepreneurial process starts to grow and move forward. So we have outside of a classroom, the individual and group interest. You put these together, you're solving everyday problems. And this is what we're trying to capture and bring into the classroom. Now, if we look at all that I've talked about so far, and you think about the video and what, how people are learning, the perception is, using the metaphor of an iceberg, we see at the top of the iceberg, we see formal learning. We can see that people are in school, they are learning, and you are giving them concepts and they're taking it home and they're studying it. And then we have non-formal learning. I need this course in order to get a better job, okay? But in reality, what's happening is all of this informal learning is all underneath, and it's being missed. We need to become mindful that this is happening, and formal institutions need to help capture this and help students grow their informal learning. And there's ways to do this. So informal learning again includes self-directed learning. It's task intentional learning. It can be incidental learning. It can be unintentional learning, and it's self-determined learning. So you start here, the self-directed phase, and you become more self-determined. And this is how an entrepreneur works. So that self-determined learning that you saw at the end of that iceberg is also a learning theory. Pedagogy is the term used for the study of self-determined learning. So the components of pedagogy is where we're trying to go. We start with the nascent entrepreneur, the new student, and we want to build on all of this learning. And the final component is this self-determined learning. And so there's learner agencies. The learner has developed more agency. The capability has improved. They've increased their potential and their talents, and they have more self-efficacy, and they move forward. They've really learned how to be reflectful. Their metacognition, critical thinking is really functioning well. And this is a non-linear component. Many times we think of, we're going to give the student A, B, C, and D, and they're going to learn how to be an entrepreneur. But that's not really how it works. It's a very messy, complex situation where they build upon their learning through many experiences and feedback. So pedagogy is the study of self-determined learning, and it applies a holistic approach to developing learner capabilities, with the learner serving as the major agent in their own learning, which occurs as a result of personal experience. Now, Hayes and Kenyon are big components and writers about helping you understand this self-determined learning theory. Now, you don't see the word pedagogy a lot in the literature, but you will see self-determined learning and autonomous learning, okay? So here, what's happening here, the idea is that you have leveraged the student to use their informal learning and add it with the components that help them leverage it from your classroom, and they can construct their own knowledge instead of you having to infer all the time and interrupt and help them. Now they're autonomous. So this is something that was written recently. It was written earlier in 2005 and 2000, and again in 2015, and now in 2020, it's becoming more noticeable in the literature on entrepreneurial education. But entrepreneurs noted the importance of lessons and meaning making in and through their learning, found by reflecting on their learning experiences as an entrepreneur. So to make this happen, you have to get a more student-centered classroom happening. And so the instructor becomes a coach where they realize that I have to bring out this learning in the student. I can't tell them the answers. I need to help them construct their own learning to find the answers, because entrepreneurship is all about uniqueness and individuality. Otherwise, we'd all have the same products and we would all be buying the same things. So more research on creating a student-centered research on learning entrepreneurship and how to create a student-centered entrepreneurship learning classroom. We need to recognize from the literature that entrepreneurs learn from experiences. Entrepreneurs reflect on action. Entrepreneurs need opportunity to learn from mistakes. Okay, that's that trial and error component that was happening in the video that you saw earlier with the interviews of the students. The uncertainty and ambiguity. So researchers are telling us that we need to make these components part of our classroom. We need to give them the experiences. They need to reflect on actions that are taken. They need to learn from mistakes. They need the uncertainty and ambiguity in order to build on their learning. And they need to find success through those failures. Okay? Very important components of learning to be entrepreneur. Oops. How do I go to the next slide? What did I do there? Okay. All right. So for more on creating the student-centered entrepreneurship learning, for students to learn like an entrepreneur, learning opportunities need to. So think about your classes. We need to enable action, or think about the area where you work. Are you enabling action for the students? Are they experiencing action and experiences related to entrepreneurship and their growth in their entrepreneurial mindset? Are you requiring reflection of them? Are they deeper? Are they getting deeper reflection to be able to understand the actions that they're taking? Are they moving beyond their assumptions? Do they think something is true, but actually it's not? Are they building on these assumptions and finding new knowledge? So is there exposure to failure? Is there an opportunity to learn from your mistake, their mistake? When you have that opportunity to learn from a mistake, you are building perseverance, grit, and resilience, which are huge components of how entrepreneurs learn. They don't give up, they keep going. In the video, it said you have to, even though you have challenges, you have to believe in your product. So if you believe in your product, you have to be willing to put in the time, you have to expose yourself to failure, and you have to be able to take that, learn from it, get the feedback, and move forward. And that's the building of this perseverance, grit, and resilience. Grit simply means, I'm not sure if it's a term you're used to, but grit means you're willing to put in that time for the long term. You're willing to keep going. And then the final component is to have no predetermined outcome. Entrepreneurial learning, and entrepreneurs build on uncertainty and ambiguity. So a lot of this, I will say, I know if you read the literature down across the bottom here, in 2006 to 2008, this researcher Cope did a lot of ethnographic research, which has allowed many entrepreneurial researchers to dig deep into the learning of entrepreneurs. He really helped many people get past the idea that an entrepreneur was a stereotype. He got in there, he was with entrepreneurs, and he stayed in their place of work. He watched them work, he asked them questions while they worked, and he followed them for quite some time. And Pitaway and Thorpe here at the bottom, who made all of these comments, took his work. He actually passed away, this Cope guy. He was working, he's from England, and then he got a big scholarship and went to Florida to work with experiential learning with Morris on entrepreneurship. And he actually was in a car accident and passed away, but his colleagues, Pitaway and Thorpe, continued his work and published it. And it's been extremely valuable to the entrepreneurship literature. And figuring out how entrepreneurs learn. And everything that came from this scope of the entrepreneurship education learning literature is very familiar to people who have been entrepreneurs, and they really relate to it, such as myself. Oh, what did I do again? All right. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to change a little focus now. I know I'm giving you a lot to learn on. I want you to frame it in your mind about yourself and your learning and what you're doing, where you're at, and how you can do it better, plus thinking about the video and everything we got out of the video. So now I'm going to switch from learner-centered to the role of the instructor for a minute. So the pedagogical approach to teaching is the base. So we find this at the base, and most students start here. If you look at the entire picture of where a student, if you've had students who are just beginning to learn about entrepreneurship and they want to know about entrepreneurship, and then you've had students who have gone all the way to developing a product, this is the way it mostly goes for the role of the instructor. So the nascent entrepreneur comes in, it's teacher-centered, it's teacher-led. You're basically giving them information and hoping that they're getting something out of that information and learning something. They're like empty vessels to be filled. This is very formative. It's like you think about elementary school. It's kind of like they're sitting in classrooms and you're just giving them information. So we want the student to develop. So this becomes a self-directed component of the entrepreneurial teaching. And here we need to start changing our assumptions about how we deal with the student. So these students really are not empty vessels. They have their own thinking. Think about everything you've learned about how adults learn. They have motivation. They have a willingness and desire to learn something. They know where they want to go, but yet we take over the classrooms. It's not like we have to reverse that. We have to let the students start developing and conceptualizing and constructing their own knowledge. So it's our job to start helping the students to do that. And you need to be able to be comfortable facilitating this type of learning environment where students are not just sitting in seats and giving them continuous information or writing assignments or filling out business models. We need to be able to facilitate action learning. So this is the andragogy area where students we realize they're not empty vessels and that they can create and construct their own knowledge. So the going from bottom up, you'll have, not every student will reach this, but some students will reach this, and this is where the entrepreneur finds himself in real life. They're self-determined. So we've gone from empty vessels, self-directed, to self-determined learners. You've now have the learner has a lot more autonomy. They come to the instructor as a coach and a resource. And this is the pedagogical learning component where we just talked about a few slides back. And this is where we really have to continue to change our assumptions, and you are enabling the student to become the best learner they can be, because entrepreneurship is a lifelong learning practice where if you can enable them, well, you have them for this time period in your classrooms and at your universities. What you really need to do is build them to be these self-determined learners. If you can build these self-determined learners, your school will be developing a lot of entrepreneurs, and that's what you want. And these are the entrepreneurs that, if we go back to the literature that we talked about previously, with the 50% decline in entrepreneurship, the loss of business dynamism, people do startups, but they don't stay long in their businesses. They plow through, they go through all this money, and their businesses are done. And then they look to become managers in companies. But what actually we need to do is this component here. We need to ensure that those that we are teaching about entrepreneurship reach this self-determined level. And even if we get them here, if we only have the time to help them become self-directed, that's great too. Because if we do this, they can build on it as they're out of school and they become more autonomous, because you've layered that foundation for them, that they can do this type of learning and become lifelong learners. So this takes us now to the DIME virtuous cycle of entrepreneurship. Okay, go back. So I'm going to go through this so we can connect the DIME cycle to the learning in the classroom, because that's the module for today, is how entrepreneurs learn. And please, I know there's going to be lots of questions, and please get your questions ready for me and John. So the DIME virtuous cycle that John mentioned earlier, so I'm connecting John's previous PowerPoints and workshops to what's happening in that DIME model from the learning perspective. So it is a student-centered entrepreneurial learning cycle built on real life action and experiences to solve problems. And this goes with all of the evidence that was built up before this that we spoke about today, because adult learners, they want to problem solve through life. So we need to build on that. So this one main component, and that for this cycle, is the theory is invisible for the students. Everything that I said earlier, that's for you. That's for you to understand how to make the experience in the classroom more entrepreneurial. The students do not need that background information. In fact, it's too much for students. So if you try to give it to them, they don't understand it anyways. They need to build on the experiences in order to understand it. So I just want to be clear that the theory is invisible to the students. Very important. So you work to develop ideas through problem solving. You create an environment of uncertainty and ambiguity, okay, for these students, just like in what we talked about, that how entrepreneurs learn and how people learn in the informal environment. So we're mitigating risk. We're teaching them how to mitigate risk by using this cycle. They don't have to be big risk takers and go through all that money. We're teaching them how to mitigate risk. Using reflection to use the reflection of opportunities to learn from mistakes. Again, very important component for entrepreneurs to learn. We go through developing enabling capacities. Again, you need to develop your capacities, your talents, your possibilities, your potentials, and able to reach that entrepreneurial higher zone. Enabling self-efficacy, that's going to be a big component of what your job is. Building success through failure, that's the final result. In the end, the students realize that they have some success, okay? They have done something and they can be proud of it. And that something, like I said, might be here and later they will build on it. It might be outside of your classroom, but they have a starting component that they can build upon. So here is the virtuous cycle of the classroom experience. This is a visual to help you understand what's happening. So you take the student, they have their idea, and then they do actions around that idea. They will have outcomes. They will do reflection. Now there's various components to reflection: narrative, perception, emotional, analytical, evaluative, and critical. And what one I was trying to draw out for you earlier in the video was getting you to think about some of that emotion that's happening, some of those feelings that are happening, because this is real. These are actions that these students take that are just like what entrepreneurs do. But if we do not help them examine their emotions and examine their feelings of what's happening, they can get stuck. So this reflection component is critical. It's part of the learning process, but sometimes we just glaze over it, okay? And I'm going to be doing a lot more on reflection tomorrow. And then it's this self-efficacy building that enables them to reach a certain level in the DIME model. Want to say something?
So as you're implementing this virtuous cycle in the classroom, so every student, as you recall the elements of sort of entrepreneurial effectuation, every student has to come up, or a small group of students comes up with an idea for a business or a social innovation. The assignment, so instead of having them read a chapter in a book, the assignment is that they actually have to develop and test that assumption through action. So outside of the classroom, they develop and test their idea with real customers. Then they come back to the classroom and they present to the classroom what the outcome was. Things went well, or things went poorly. During the classroom discussion, you as a professor are facilitating a reflective practice, which Lisa's going to go into more detail tomorrow. But initially, students will just narrate. I went and did this and this happened. And then when things go wrong, you can dive deeper into the perception and how did you feel? And then the analysis and critical, evaluative and critical. And so through this discussion, you're building through the learning cohort, the learning by doing, learning from others, and learning by working together. So together, the classroom is building that knowledge. Always at the end of every student's presentation, the faculty pivots the discussion and asks the student or other students, how could you do it better next time? So that the students think about this self-efficacy. How am I going to do it better based on my experience, based on the discussion? How can I do it better next time? And then they pull out and say, okay, now they take that self-efficacy, and for the next week's assignment, they revise their idea and start the cycle over again.
Professor Dobson, you had a question from Anik?
Yes.
He says, so this action must happen multiple times in a semester, not just once.
Yes. So the idea is, in my classes, we do this every week. So every week, the homework assignment is that they revise their idea and go implement it again. And so that's the success through failure, because initially the students are going to have missteps. They're going to assume, make a lot of assumptions, and the only way to sort of get real market feedback is to actually take that assumption out of the classroom and go develop and test it. So every week, initially I'll give students the latitude of thinking for a week or two, but by the second week, they have to go take the action, because a lot of students are paralyzed, have a lot of fear about actually leaving the classroom. And so the idea is that you nudge them out of the classroom to implement their ideas. And we'll talk about the assessment, because we talked about this earlier. How do you assess that when there are no predetermined outcomes? When even the professor doesn't know what a successful idea it would look like at the end of the semester. Any other questions?
Yes, there's a question. Can you give an example of a typical assignment like this one?
The typical assignment is we've gone through the DIME model, and so this is the model is. So think of this slide as what's happening in the classroom. So the virtuous cycle, this model is how you're facilitating the learning in the classroom, sort of based on all the theories that we talked about earlier. This slide is how the process of how entrepreneurs transform or develop ideas into opportunities. And so you have a student who has an idea. Do you want to give me an example of an idea? Whoever posed that question, of a real student's business idea, and we'll walk through it.
Anik, you got an example?
Okay, so while he's typing the example, I'll just explain it. And so a student is tasked with coming up with an idea. Then what the student does is they look inwardly with their knowledge, skills, and ability to how to solve that idea. And so there might be gaps in what they're trying to do. And so week one, a student might pause and spend the week trying to build that, exploiting the networks, might spend the time trying to figure out connecting those people that are going to help them develop it. And so that student would come back to class and say, I spent my 5 hours developing my idea, and I worked with these other people that I know that can help me. Other students might, in week one, might go all the way to they've developed their idea, so the innovation phase, and they created baked brownies or and then they're now trying to actually sell their product or service to real customers. And so when they come and describe what they did, they're like, okay, well, I did this to create the product, then I went to sell it and nobody bought it, or I went to sell it and everybody bought it. And so every student is identifying, sort of when you looked at what Lisa said, is identifying their needs and spending time developing those needs and overcoming those deficiencies. So, and then what happens is they present what they did, and then the next week we task them with moving that project forward further. So what was the example? Maine?
We didn't get an example, but I have one.
Okay, go ahead.
A mentorship program.
Okay.
So the idea was a women's mentorship program.
Okay, so I'll give you that example. Now, this example is actually from our Harvard master's program. So you're typically not going to get, and this student is a working professional. And so I'm going to give you the example, but it's not really that suitable for, you're not going to get this example as an undergrad. But so the idea is this student, this is a real idea that she implemented. Her idea was to develop a women's mentoring program for professional women in the sales field. And so what she did is she looked at her knowledge, skills, and ability. And then part of her assignment when she presented it is she actually talked to other people to get a better sense of how to make this mentoring program work better. And so when she presented, she talked about this. She talked about how it was different and why it was needed, which is the systemic thinking, how it differed from other options. And then what was interesting and what happened is that when she actually took her idea, so she developed the idea, she took her idea to her company, something interesting happened. First it was more mentors signed up than mentees. So she initially thought, based on her discussions, that she would get more people interested in becoming mentees, but she ended up with the opposite thing, more mentors. So she went back through the model and retweaked it. And in her second iteration, what ended up happening is she ended up having more men sign up for the female mentoring program than women. And so then she went through the model again. And now she's the third iteration, she's able to create this product that now she's going to launch. Anything else you want to add to that, Maine?
I thought it was perfect. I love that you went back and she had to go back through the process. And I'm not sure if everybody could see the direction that you were going. So starting with idea, going to the bottom, knowledge areas and skills, and then up through the people and the brain, systemic thinking. So it's a figure, it's an infinity loop. So it's a continual go back.
And so what I didn't explain any of these. So when she was talking about her channels, she used emails, she used face-to-face meetings is how she got the word out, right? And then she used certain words, what we talked about within her entrepreneurial marketing. And then she had her initial customers, what we call the friends, families, and fools within the company that were the early adopters. And then, so there's examples of how each student applies those elements. So some students might spend more time in various stages, but we do not, as faculty, we do not know, because we don't know enough about the students, where they need to dive deeper. And this model allows them, the classroom layout, the classroom structure of this model allows them to pause and do a deeper dive at each step that they need. So some students might be very confident with their knowledge, skills, and ability, very confident with their network, and very confident with the innovation phase. And so they'll spend more time sort of building their customers and their channels and their marketing. Other students will spend most of the semester in these three steps because the idea is more complex. They struggle with developing the idea, but ultimately you get them to test it with real customers.
Professor Dobson, we had a question on how to implement this exercise in a mass class. So, and also a comment, but we get to that.
When you say a mass class, do you mean a large class?
How many students?
I think everybody in the room.
How many people?
That would be Aziz.
Like how many?
And he coming 150, about 100.
Oh, yeah. So the idea is, do you have a teaching aid or no?
Okay. Can you do a teaching aid? Like me?
Sure. Might need to go back though.
I will, yeah. And so the idea is that when you're looking at those elements, if you look at the elements of entrepreneurship, effectuation, is that students need to, we call it pilot the plane. And so they need to actually develop and test a concrete idea. And so when we saw the video, we had the two students that developed that product in the classroom. They developed a prototype, but actually never talked to a customer. And so they struggled because nobody really was interested in the product. And so the idea is that students, what I would do with a class of 150 is I would go through the initial steps of the exercise, of the DIME model. And then what you do is they write down their three ideas. They present them to other students. I think we did this. If we didn't do it, I'll do it again in our last session as we're getting ready. And then students can present their ideas, and other students that are interested can join their projects, right? So what I typically have is allow student projects of 3, because I want enough agency of the students. I don't want students to be passengers in this journey. I need them to be active. And so if you group them by 3s, all of a sudden your class of 150 has come down to 50 different micro ventures. Another thing that and so that makes it a little more manageable. And then your job is to just make sure that each of those students is really doing the work that they say they are. Because we know sometimes in group dynamics, one student does all the work, the other 2 don't do very much. And so your job is to, and Professor Lisa is going to talk about this in 2 classes on the assessment, is how do you assess this? And you're not assessing, you're not giving an A for effort. What we're doing is we're assessing the learning journey of the student. And you can see that from the video that you saw of the undergraduate students. They talk a lot about their journey from the beginning of the semester to the end, and it's profound, right? And so you can see the initial presentations are horrible. They're struggling with really basic concepts of how to develop a product and who their customer is, and unrealistic expectations of sales, unrealistic expectations of market penetration. But you put that aside, and the philosophy and the teaching philosophy is that you meet the students where they are. And they all come at various levels, and we can't, it's counterproductive to think that they're all going to be at the level of the best student. But you meet them where they are, and you build from where they are. And for that student, for one student, going to talk to and selling comes natural. To other students, talking to another person about buying a product is a monumental fear that you have to help them overcome. And so a lot of what you do in this facilitation, which is tomorrow's lesson, is helping them navigate that fear, the fear of the unknown, the fear of failure. Because if they know the result, it's not really entrepreneurship. There's got to be an element of uncertainty and ambiguity, and it's messy, it's uncertain, and the initial results are underwhelming, right? Even in my Harvard class, when you see their initial presentations, they're like, oh. But the end of this, and Maeve is nodding her head, both as a student and as my former student and as my TA. But as you see them develop, it's phenomenal once you give them the agency and focus on their self-directed learning, that they become much more impressive than you could have ever imagined. Any other questions you want to add?
So I just want to add the fact that this type of teaching is uncommon to students, to most students, because it's not what they have seen before or what they have been involved in before. So it takes a few classrooms, don't give up. It takes a few classrooms to get them thinking for themselves, to get them constructing their own knowledge, to empower them that their idea is theirs, and what can they do with that idea.
And so what happens is they tend to come in expecting a pedagogical approach. And even we had presentations last night at Harvard, and students are still focused on how do I get an A? And we know. And so they come in at this approach. They want you to tell them the answer. But the truth is, you do not know the answer whether their idea will work or not. And I have all sorts of examples of people that came in with these ideas that I thought, there's no way that idea is going to work. And yet they succeeded. What you're doing is moving them away from this pedagogical perspective and encouraging them to construct their own knowledge and to self-direct what they're trying to accomplish. And what makes it powerful is that when they encounter struggles, it's not, you told me, the teacher is wrong about the answer. It's you allow them to tell you why they thought that was an important project. Why did they pick that? And that builds that motivation, because they picked it because they were interested in that. And they were interested in learning about that topic, and that's why they picked it. And that becomes a lever that you get them through the initial failures that they have, is that you wanted to solve this problem, and therefore this class is your opportunity to solve this problem or develop a business, whatever you're trying to do.
Two things I want to add. Go ahead.
No, you can add.
Two things. Because they're not used to this type of classroom, someone mentioned last time we met about the different types of students and how do you get them to participate, and it doesn't matter what level they're coming from. What really you have to impress upon them, whatever level, if it's undergraduate, graduate, doctoral, does not matter. It's a class about engagement. So they really need to understand it's about, and they have to be willing to participate in action learning, and they have to be willing to be engaging in that. And the work, and you will be helping them pull that out, but it's not, you have to somehow help them understand this is a different class. So your expectations, I make it very clear in my class, my expectations for you this term are that you will participate. You will be engaged in creating your own action learning. You are now going to be learning on your own, and I'm going to help you. I'm going to be with you along the way. So it takes a few classes for them to really start to realize and believe that they have more agency, because it's unlike most classes they've ever taken.
And I'll just add that typically, I haven't really, the vast majority of your students will be extremely excited. They'll be nervous, they'll be scared, and your job is to hold their hands and help them along. But when I've had students tell me, these are senior students, when I'm teaching a class, they're like, we've taken this minor in entrepreneurship, and yours is the first time we've actually left the classroom to do something, and they can't wait to leave the classroom to test their assumptions, because it's easy enough to build a nonsensical business plan in a classroom that nobody in their right mind would invest any money.
And the second part I want to mention, it's okay that it's granular. It's okay that it's brought down to something they can work with.
Because they're supposed to develop and test it in a week. We don't want them to write out a fully fleshed out business plan. What can they develop and test in 1 week to solve this problem? That's the criteria. Any other questions?
Professor Lisa just answered. The question was, around, is it suitable for freshmen? And she said, yes, all levels.
Absolutely. Yeah, anyone. I've had up to doctoral students.
Yeah, perfect. Any other questions or comments? Thoughts, reflections?
Can I do my takeaways?
Yeah, okay. Well, let's see if there's any questions first.
I can leave it at that.
No, you can go to your takeaways.
So I just have a few slides of takeaways, and again, I'm happy to offer to let me know if you want the PowerPoint or the information. So some takeaways of the PowerPoint today is learning is a personal journey. Adults learn using prior experiences to form new experiences, and just what we're talking about in those classroom, you're going to get your students to use what they already have as experiences to think, and that's where their ideas are going to come from, right? Next, adults are self-directed in their day-to-day learning, so you can make them understand that they're already doing this, so let's just build upon that.
Professor Lisa, I don't think
Yes.
we can see your slides. I don't think we can see it. If you're good.
You can't see the slides?
No, no. We could before, but when we went to go talk about the final thought.
Anything yet?
No.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
Okay.
It's okay. It's okay.
Keep going with the keep going with the takeaways. Keep going with the takeaways.
Okay, so another takeaway is that informal learning, if you put together informal learning, just to remember all that's happening in informal learning is 75%. If you add courses on top of it that they need to take to realize some of those ideas they have in informal learning, that's 90% of their learning. So what you're giving them, the formal aspect, is like 10%. So we really need to be very critical in what we're offering them in our classroom, that we can leverage that informal learning to become entrepreneurs. So we've talked about that it goes from a pedagogical component to an andragogical component. So you're learning as you're learning, the instructor has control. We're giving the students more control in the classroom, which is where you're going to be working a lot to make that happen. And then you've got the self-determined autonomous learners, and you're creating entrepreneurs in daily life. Then we go to the fact that entrepreneurs are continuously learning from their experiences and action. They're reflecting, they're redoing, they're adapting. This is what we know from the literature, so we're bringing this into the classroom. Then the entrepreneurial learning journey is not linear, but it's iterative, it's repetitious. It's these continuous going through the cycle to create something new and making sure it's right for the customer. As a lot of this was mentioned in the video that we looked at, and the first two ladies missed so much of this, and by getting the money and spending the money, they missed so many components of how to make that entrepreneurial journey much better. And that's where we come in to help these students. We switch it over. We're allowing them, this classroom time is their time to work on their projects to become entrepreneurs. And we will get many successes out of that. And finally, in the classroom, we need to be enabling action. We need to make it reflective for the students. We need to expose them to failure. And we need to really realize that entrepreneurship is not about predetermined outcomes. We need to become okay with the fact that students are constructing, and we are on this journey with them. They're constructing their knowledge, and it's an individual journey, and there's not really predetermined outcomes. And that's what we were talking about a few minutes ago, the difference in the classroom, and I'll get into more of that tomorrow. So does everybody know that we're meeting again tomorrow?